Good evening. Welcome to the October 7th, 2024 meeting of the Marshfield Planning Board. The time is now 7 p.m. Tonight's meeting is being recorded by MCTV, and we are holding a live remote meeting via Zoom. Tonight's members here tonight are Katie O'Donnell, Nick Papastratis, Fred Monaco, Kevin Cantwell is currently absent. I'm Mike Viviano, the chair, and our associate member, Scott DeCastro. Also with us tonight is Greg Guimon, our town planner, and Karen Horn, our assistant town planner. At this time, I'll make a motion to open tonight's public hearing and waive the reading of the notice. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion. Fred Monaco, second.
Thank you. Katie?
Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Thank you. Nick?
Nick Papastratis, aye.
Fred?
Fred Monaco, aye.
Kevin's not here. Mike Viviano, aye.
Mike,
Okay. Yep.
anyone here for the modification of the John Sherman Open Space Residential Special Permit Public Hearing? That will be continued to October 21st without testimony. Do you want to go to the Boys and Girls Club minor modification first?
Yeah, that's fine. We can go there.
All right, I will share the screen. Can you see the screen?
We can.
Yeah.
All right, so Proprietor's Way is up and down. Woodlot and Commerce are at the bottom. The area that we're talking about is behind the Boys and Girls Club building. It's the ball fields. Their proposal is to, here's the natural turf field right now. Let me zoom out for 1 second. You can see the playground. The pool is to the left. And their proposal is to convert the turf field into a synthetic turf field, and then have a small street hockey area off to the left. They have submitted their drainage study and stuff. It does not show any increases in the 10, 25, or 100-year storm events.
Okay. Anything else, Greg?
Staff has no problem with the minor modification. I didn't know if Sean would like to say anything.
Sean, any comments if needed?
No, I think Greg covered most of it. The Boys and Girls Club's just looking to improve their natural field to synthetic turf, make it more all-weather use, and also with the addition of a street hockey rink, a small street hockey rink for the kids to use as well. Those are the two big improvements.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Any comments from the board?
No.
Anyone from the public here for this? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion that we approve the minor modification for the Boys and Girls Club ball field. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick?
Nick Papastratis, aye.
Fred?
Fred Monaco, aye.
Kevin, did you ever come in? Can't see everyone. No. Okay, no Kevin. Mike Viviano, aye. So that passes 4-0.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure, Jimmy.
Thank you. Let's see.
Bye-bye.
Next, we got a minute or two to the public hearing. You want to go through your board report?
So the last couple of weeks have been a little busy and interesting. We do have several other town meeting zoning amendments for the board to consider. One is to clarify the scope of authority for the planning board under 1303 WRPD. I'd given you guys an email detailing that change, which is basically to clarify it's the planning board would do a special permit. When a planning board has to do the special permit for WRPD, they would undertake the site plan approval as well. And it was to make it one-stop shopping for applicants. Recently, there was a different interpretation, and we just want to get that language clear. So the planning board isn't doing site plan review for everything going on in the WRPD, especially things that don't require special permits from the planning board. The next one is to add a line in the table of use to cover battery energy storage systems. We saw an application come in. Kevin Cantwell has now joined us. That a large battery storage facility is possibly going to be proposed on town school department off of Forest Street. We think it's something that should be addressed specifically. Right now, it would have to fall into public utilities. So we'd also add in a definition about battery energy storage systems, or they call them BESS. And then the last change that we would like to add would be to modify the existing table of use under line 23 large-scale solar installations to correct it to reflect the Dover Amendment. We would prohibit it in the WRPD, and we would prohibit it in the smaller developed lots of the R3 district and the RB district. These changes would require us to advertise and hold a second public hearing for zoning changes. We would probably need to continue the public hearing on the MBTA communities in the ADU anyway, because we're going to be waiting on the Supreme Court decision. Hopefully, we're supposed to have that by October 30th. So those are the 4 other zoning amendments that staff has suggested that the board may want to consider to go ahead with it for this year. For, I should say, December special town meeting.
All right, thank you, Greg. All right, so the time is 7:06. Also, Kevin Canwell has joined us. So at this time, I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing for Luca Lane definitive subdivision off of Ames Way and read the reading of the notice. Is there a second?
This meeting
Second,
is
Katie
being
O'Donnell.
recorded.
Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Thanks, Nick.
Nick Papastratus, aye.
Fred,
Fred Monaco, aye.
Kevin,
Kevin Canwell, aye.
and Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, who's here to present this one?
This
Greg
is
Morris.
Greg Morris.
Hey, Greg, how are you?
Good evening. I'm going to do a share screen here and put a copy of the subdivision plan up for everyone to take a look at as I make the presentation. Can you see the screen?
We can.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, for the record, my name's Gregory Morse. I'm a registered engineer with Morse Engineering. I'm representing the applicant, Biagini Incorporated. We're here for a definitive subdivision application known as Luca Lane. It would be off of Ames Way in North Marshfield. It's a new 3-lot residential subdivision with approximately 600 feet of road in a new cul-de-sac proposed. Looking at the plans here, I'm going to flip to the existing conditions plan, which is sheet 2 of the plan set. The property itself consists of 2 separate lots. There's a larger lot in the back here, which is undeveloped woodland. And then there's an existing home out front here at 111 Ames Way. In total, the combined area of the project is about 5.5 acres. It's entirely upland land area. There were no wetlands on the site. There's no FEMA floodplain. It's located in the R1 zoning district. It's not in the Water Resource Protection District. It's not in any well protection zones or zone 2s. It has frontage on Ames Way, which is at the left side of the screen here. Ames Way is a publicly owned and maintained road. The direct abutter to the south, this property, is the town of Marshfield. This is the Ames Way School. And on the northern side and on the eastern side of the property over here, we're abutted by developed residentially zoned single-family homes. The back half of the site is located in an endangered species habitat area. We did submit this subdivision to Mass Wildlife, and they have issued a letter that's referred to as a no-take letter, indicating that it would not be an adverse impact and not a taking of a state endangered rare species with this subdivision. I forwarded a copy of that submittal to the planning department today. Topography at this property, the high point is generally at the back of the lot. The topography up here is at elevation 195 feet, and it slopes either in a northerly direction off the site, or it slopes in a southerly direction onto the town of Marshfield property, the Ames Way School. For reference, again, we're at 195 at the back of the site. Over here along the property line, we're at approximately elevation 186. Amesway Street is 186, 187 out at the front. Soils testing was conducted throughout the site with Marshfield Board of Health. We had adequate soils for the 4-lot subdivision and for drainage at the property. Soils were generally loamy sands and sandy loams, all with acceptable perk rates. And flipping to this plan, this is our grading and utility plan. This depicts the layout of the proposed road. The road is laid out right here, 600 feet long, 601 feet long, with a cul-de-sac located at the end of it. It's a type A road per your rules and regulations, which means it has 18 feet of pavement for the traveled way, has 18-inch Cape Cod berm on either side, and on one side of the roadway, a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk down one side. That road provides access to the 3 new homes, Lot 3, Lot 2, and Lot 1. Lot 4 would remain with the existing home that's already there today. That would comply with all zoning setbacks where the home is placed. Underneath the road are utilities which would service the subdivision project. There's subsurface electric, subsurface gas line, an 8-inch water line with a hydrant at the end of the cul-de-sac, and then a drainage system. The drainage, generally, the area in the cul-de-sac here drains to the center island of the cul-de-sac where there's a rain garden proposed. That rain garden in the cul-de-sac overflows and flows down toward the Amesway Street, where it's discharged ultimately into an infiltration basin that you'll see here at the intersection of the proposed road and Amesway. Within the road, we also have a series of catch basins, deep sump hooded catch basins, directing water to the infiltration basin. As part of the submittal, we submitted drainage calculations and a full drainage report documenting compliance with the stormwater management policy and its 10 standards, the largest being that we mitigate the rates and volumes of runoff for the 2, the 10, the 25, and the 100-year storm events. It also included operation and maintenance plans for the construction phase and the post-construction phase of this project. Pat Brennan has been solicited by the town to do a peer review. We have his comment letter. We also received comments last week from Charlie Swanson, engineer with the DPW. All of the comments we have not fully addressed yet, but they all look very reasonable, and we expect to address them with a revised set of plans likely to be submitted next week. So that being said, I expect the conclusion of this meeting will be continuing this so that we can address the comments from Pat as well as Charlie and come back to the board, hopefully with a plan that fully meets all of the outstanding comments that were made. As part of this, we are seeking 4 waivers from the subdivision rules and regulations. Those waivers are on the cover page of the plan set. Zooming in here, I'll run through them just real quickly. The first one was to allow a 20-foot radius instead of a 30-foot radius at the entrance to the cul-de-sac. That's requested because the property lines at the entrance to the cul-de-sac are the existing property lines out there today, and it exists with a 20-foot radius. It does not impact the traffic. It does not impact the curb layout, simply just a property line. We can discuss that further when the time comes. Waiver number 2 was in regard to the typical roadway cross-section. You have a specific standard that you want roadways set out to. We're asking for 3 small deviations to that. The first one is the gas main. We're asking for that to be located under the grass strip next to the street instead of under the street. Secondly, we're asking that the water main be offset 3 feet from the center line of the road instead of 7 feet. The water main, if it's offset 7 feet, as shown in the subdivision rules and regs, would go through all of the catch basins that are along the side of the road. So this appeared to be a better layout in our opinion. And the third being a 3.5 foot wide grass strip around the cul-de-sac at the end of the street versus a 4.5 foot wide grass strip. A 4.5 foot wide grass strip doesn't fit inside of 140 foot diameter. It was just I think it's a geometric, perhaps typo in the rules and regulations. Just doesn't fit. Waiver number 3 was coverage over one of the drainage pipes toward the bottom of the subdivision where it intersects with Ames Way. We have 1.8 feet of cover over the pipe. Instead of 2.5 feet of cover being required. We've specified in this location that a class 5, which is a heavy duty reinforced concrete pipe, would be used. This waiver is necessary due to the presence of groundwater and making sure that we comply with applicable setbacks to that groundwater in the infiltration basin. And the fourth waiver we were asking for was to allow street trees only on the southerly side of the road instead of both sides of the road. The northerly side of the road is wooded along this side and would remain wooded. We weren't clearing up to the lot lines. But we would do street trees in front of all the proposed new houses along the cul-de-sac and working its way up along the southern side. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and I can answer questions or dive into more detail in any of the specifics that you want, but I'm going to turn it back over. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Greg. Do you want to go to, back to, sorry, how did I forget your name there, Greg? Greg. It's Greg Morris and Greg the planner. That's why I forgot it.
All right,
Greg, you have any comments?
Pat is here if you want to go to Pat first, and then I'll chime in.
Okay, that'd be great. Pat?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I did review the plans, as Greg Morse had mentioned. Submitted a letter to the board on September 10th. 14 comments, none of them, like Greg mentioned, none of them are real deal breakers here. I'll run through them real quick, just so you know what they are. The first one is I'm looking for a test hole at the location of the rain garden that's inside the cul-de-sac, the center island there. The second one is the infiltration basin. They have the bottom of the basin with 4 inches of crushed stone. I prefer to see that vegetated with loam and seed. Grass does a much better job of treating the runoff than just straight crushed stone. And we typically see grass in the bottom of the basins. The emergency spillway detail for the basin, I wanted to see a concrete curb or something across it. Right now they just show riprap stone, and the water will flow through that riprap stone before reaching the elevation of the spillway. So you need that concrete cutoff wall in there to control that flow. We recommend a plastic type of hood in the catch basins rather than the cast iron Mass DPW hoods. That's what's pretty much been going on. All of the catch basins and all of the subdivisions over the past probably 15, 20 years. I've asked them to provide the diameter and model of the beehive grate that they have in the rain garden. That's the overflow structure for the rain garden. I've also asked them to include a hood in that catch basin to keep the rain garden has mulch in it, and obviously mulch can float when the rain garden gets flooded. So I want the hood just so that floatables don't get into that piping system and just cause issues downstream. I've suggested either a guardrail or a post and rail fence around the cul-de-sac, around the rain garden, mainly so that the rain garden, it's a gentle slope, so you could actually almost drive a vehicle right in there. So that's why I want something there so people aren't parking cars in the rain garden. The cross section, as Greg mentioned, it's an 18-foot wide road, and they have 18-inch Cape Cod berms on each side for 21-foot overall pavement width, and that's what your rules and regs, what your typical standard sections specify. There's only 1 or 2 paving contractors that actually have the attachments for the 18-inch berms. Most of them only have 12-inch berms. So what I've been recommending on these types of projects, over the past few years is to go to a 12-inch wide berm, increase the lane width by half a foot on each side. So you still have the 21 feet of overall pavement width. You just have a little bit of a narrower berm and a little bit of a wider travel way. One of your regulations requires a layout radii, concentric with the required curb radii at all street intersections. On the north side of the intersection with Ames Way, you can see there's that's going to be within an easement, because that property to the north, although it's owned by kind of the same family, it's not part of this application. So they're proposing an easement there. And I mean, I guess it could be a question for Greg or even town council, whether that would require a waiver, because it's not an actual property line that they're proposing there. It's an easement. So that was just a question that I brought up. One of your regulations requires a 50-foot buffer of existing vegetation between all basins and adjacent uses. They wouldn't have that around their proposed infiltration basin. I've asked them to provide rational method pipe sizing calculations just so we can verify that the pipe sizes are all adequate. And then one of your regulations, and we've run into this in the past, which is why I always bring it up while we're reviewing this project now, wherever you have driveway aprons and a concrete sidewalk going through, the driveway between the concrete sidewalk and the road is required to be concrete. So we just want to make sure that that's clear on the plans, because it's been a problem in the past, and we just want to make sure that that isn't a problem going forward. He's got an erosion sedimentation control plan. I've just asked that they provide a sediment barrier on the down gradient limits of work, basically just so that nothing flows down on the school property. And then I just had a couple of requests to make some minor changes to both their construction phase O&M plan for the stormwater, and also their post-construction operation and maintenance plan for the stormwater. But those are fairly minor. And like I said, none of these issues I see as deal breaking. I think they're all fairly easily remedied. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Greg, you have any issues with the letter at all?
No issues with it. I think we're able to respond and comply with everything Pat's asking for.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions on the board for Pat? Okay, don't see anyone. I can only see so many people. So if you give your hand up, just say something. Greg Guimond, go to you.
Thanks, Mike. So the Board of Health sent us an email. The perk tests look good. The proposal has some recommended changes from both Pat, as Pat has mentioned, and the DPW. We actually have two different designs at the cul-de-sac, the hydrant location, which we can work out between the DPW and Pat. As Pat mentioned, it's missing the waiver request for the 50-foot buffer for the drainage lot. No public benefits have been offered for the waivers yet. We typically want to see what the rationale is for the waiver, and if they're going to provide a public benefit. The planning board has to find a public benefit to grant waivers. We did have a resident come in and was concerned with the location of the cul-de-sac right on their property line, and they were wondering if there was anything that could be done to shift the cul-de-sac away from their property line. And after the board and the public have any questions, planning board or the staff's recommendation is to continue this public hearing until November 4th.
Okay. Any other questions from the board before I go to the public?
No.
Okay, seeing none.
Greg,
Anyone here
we
from the
might need
public?
you to stop sharing the screen for the second so we can see the larger view of people. Thank you.
There we go. Anyone here from the public on this?
Yeah, Tom Miller, 89 Ames Way.
Hi, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, so on the plans, I am the north abutter to the site. What's not on the plans, first of all, I want to thank Greg and the board for having this hearing. The our name, Thomas Moore Miller, that's exactly where our house is.
Greg, you want to pull the plan back up while he's talking?
Certainly will. Bear with
Thank
me
you.
1 second. So this
So
is,
right, yeah,
this
so
is
right there,
the-
that's where our house is. That obviously the whole area is completely secluded in the woods right now, and the property line is our lawn. Right up to that line is grass that goes from our house to our small deck. It's only about 15 yards to the property line, and that's where that cul-de-sac is being proposed. So, you know, I just saw the documents today. I went into the office. I had seen a post put up. Obviously, there had been some clearing done. There was a post put up recently that was about 20 yards into the woods that had cul-de-sac written on it. That raised some flags. But then when I saw the plans today, I was frankly extremely disappointed. Really disappointed that the cul-de-sac is right on our property. It's zero regard in that plan. And there's not a whole lot else I can really say. I know I did take some notes on the waivers there, and the waivers seem to be tied to that cul-de-sac being put in that place. To me, it looks like, and I don't, you know, I'm not an engineer whatsoever, but the cul-de-sac is being jammed in there to allow the houses to be more in the middle of the property. There's obviously a slope farther back, but the houses could be pulled back even further. And I mean, the cul-de-sac's one thing. It looks like a pretty massive cul-de-sac. First of all, is the cul-de-sac even needed? Could you have a road that simply just goes to those properties to leave a buffer for our property? I mean, we've been here 17 years. Biaginis are our neighbors. They're friends of ours. I understand that developing is going to happen. We knew the property was there when we purchased 17 years ago. It's just really, like I said before, disappointing. And if there's enough property there that cul-de-sac doesn't need to be 20 yards from our house. I just wanted to ask about submitting comments. I know, Greg, you mentioned submitting comments today, and if there's a deadline on that. I know we have the November 4th meeting now. Specifically to the waivers, I mean, the one waiver, the first waiver, the cul-de-sac has less radius because it's being shoved into that area. You know, and again, I'm just taking these waivers for what they're worth. And, you know, on 2C, Mr. Moore said it just doesn't fit. So that's one of the issues here. It looks like it's really just being jammed right in there on the property line. So, you know, we, like I said before, realize this is going to happen one way or the other, but we really would appreciate at least some sense of the privacy and seclusion that we've had for 17 years as Marshfield residents. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. So I guess the applicants and their engineer have heard that plea. Totally understood. We can all see how close that is to it. We'll let them. They'll need to respond to that at a next meeting to see if there's any changes they propose. We can't force them to propose anything new. Greg, do you want to mention anything about that right now, or or later?
I hear the comment, and I'll take a look at that as we go through plan revisions.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Is there anyone else here from the public looking to speak? I don't think I see anyone. Back to the board. Just any other final comments before we continue? All right, seeing none. Greg, what's the continuing date?
November 4th.
11/4/24 7:05. All right. Nothing else to add, Greg? Guimond?
No.
Okay. So
Actually, I did. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Katie.
I was like looking at the cul-de-sac, and I was just wondering, like, maybe before then, Greg, I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but are there any other examples, I guess like seeing the cul-de-sac, it's kind of an interesting where it touches the abutter's property line, but they don't actually get any frontage and I was just trying to think of any other examples of anything like that. And so I was just wondering if you think of any, or if you could share them with me before the next meeting, because I feel like that is a kind of unique circumstance. And I was trying to picture it in other places.
Okay.
You're just saying, okay, Greg, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, yes, I can take a look and see if I can come up with some other examples of where that's been laid out before. Sure.
Okay. And I was
Because
actually like Greg Guimont, I was thinking.
I wasn't sure which Greg. That's why I said it's
Sorry for
software.
not clarifying, but
I saw Greg answering, so I decided to be quiet. We will look at it and we will check with Greg and Pat to see if we can shift it a little. It is the property line for that parcel from back in either 1971, was that, Karen? From 1971, so it was like based on old rules and regs that they created that property line. So we'll see what we can do with this.
okay. Thank you. With that, we can go on to continuing. Sorry, Mike.
All right, no problem, thanks. All right, at this time, I'll make a motion. We continue this public hearing until November 4th, 2024 at 7:05. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Thank you, Nick.
Nick Papastratus, aye.
Fred,
Fred Monaco, aye.
Kevin,
Kevin Campbell, I.
and Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, we'll see you back on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is another public meeting,
Hearing.
another public hearing. I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing for Marshfield Hills Estate definitive subdivision off of Main Street and waive the reading of the notice. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick,
Nick Papastratus, aye.
Fred,
Fred Monaco, aye.
Kevin,
Kevin Campbell, I.
thank you. Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, who's here for this one?
This is Greg Morse again for this one.
No, not you.
Bear with me one sec while I get this plan up.
One thing to add while he's pulling up the plan for the residents, because we've had a number of people come in and say, where is 0 Main Street? This is just south of 1877 Main Street. So when a lot of people were thinking it was down by South River and Veterans Park, and it's like, no, it's way up the other end of town.
By the garage?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Greg, we're ready when you are.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing the applicant, Celebrity Realty Trust. I'm going to do a share screen and put a copy of the subdivision plans up for everyone to see. There you go. You should see that there.
Yeah.
What we're here for is, again, definitive subdivision, which would be known as Marshfield Hills Estates. It's a proposal which includes 1,439 linear feet of a new cul-de-sac subdivision road, which would provide access to 10 new residential single-family homes that you see here. Looking at the plan here, Main Street, which is Route 3A, a state highway, is on the right-hand side of the plan. The property line is this line here. It's comprised of 2 assessors parcels, parcel D180201 and D180202. It's a total of approximately 18.8 acres in size. It's previously undeveloped. It's entirely woodland area right now. There are 2 on-site wetland resource areas that come into play with this project. Right here, this is a bordering vegetated wetland with an intermittent stream inside of it. You'll see that our cul-de-sac road, we'll get into more detail with it, but the cul-de-sac road does cross over that wetland at this location. And further back on the site, in the middle here, this is an isolated vegetated wetland. It's a wetland under the Marshfield bylaw only. It is not a state jurisdictional wetland. There are no FEMA floodplains on this site. There's no endangered species habitat. This is not a water resource protection district. This is in the R1 zoning district. The proposal here is to construct the new road, which would tie in right here on Main Street, Route 3A. The typical roadway cross section is 20 feet wide of pavement with 12 inches of Cape Cod berm on each side and 1 5-foot wide sidewalk. The new road would come in, it's 1,439 linear feet to the cul-de-sac at the end. Underneath the roadway would be subsurface electric system, a drainage system, and a water main. The water main would bring water down and have hydrants spaced essentially at 500-foot spacing with a hydrant at the end. The drainage system on this site generally drains the water to a stormwater basin, which is located right here on the site. The topography in the roadway profile has grades from 0.8% to 3.75%. So it's a relatively flat road, given those grades. The grading exterior of the roadway for a small portion in this area where the wetlands are does require a retaining wall along the edge of the right-of-way. That retaining wall is to hold back fill from the wetland and the buffer areas. Also at the stream crossing here is a box culvert to help mitigate with wetland impacts as we cross that wetland. We do have an open notice of intent hearing with the Conservation Commission right now. We presented this to them last week. They had a number of questions and comments. So I'm expecting that we'll receive comments tonight and then over the next several weeks, work on making a revised submittal, hopefully to address their concerns as well as yours. And again, I've received comments from Mr. Brennan and Mr. Swanson on this. So I expect we will be continued tonight to a future hearing date. Each of these lots, these 10 lots, is fully zoning compliant. Being in the R1, they're all a minimum of 1 acre of upland in size. They all have 125 feet of frontage. Lots 2 and lot 8, portions of those 2 lots are in the wetlands overlay district. You'll note on the plans that we have this line here labeled Inland Wetlands Overlay District, which looking at that line, you would assume that the entirety of the back of this site is in the district. However, the district is further defined in the bylaw as being areas that have poorly drained soils as identified by the USDA. I've met with the zoning enforcement officer, Andrew Stewart, and we're in the process of redefining where that district is on this property. I believe it's on lot 2 and lot 8. The remainder of these lots are going to be outside of the district. Developments of lots 2 and lot 8, I believe, will be in full compliance with the development requirements for that zoning district. Soil testing has been conducted out here. We have perk tests witnessed by the Board of Health on all of the lots. Generally, they're sandy loam soils, all passing perk rates on all of the lots. We submitted a separate waiver request letter with this submittal. There were 5 requests for waivers that we were seeking. Running through them real quickly. The first was a reduction in sidewalks. This type of road requires 2 sidewalks. We're asking for a waiver for 1 sidewalk down one side. The second waiver was with request to extend the dead end roadway length. 800 feet is the maximum dead end roadway length. We're asking for 1,439. That's due largely, in fact, due to the presence of these wetlands. You'll see that the majority of the developable area on this site is in excess of 500 feet back onto the property before you even get to it across the wetlands. The third one was with respect to water mains being looped. There's an existing dead-end water main at the front of this property on Main Street. We were looking to extend that, but there isn't a physical location to loop it to. So we're asking for a waiver on that. The fourth waiver was with respect to this area where we're crossing the wetlands and have the retaining wall. The subdivision rules and regulations have a max retaining wall height of 4 feet. Our retaining wall and box culvert in that location are going to be approximately 10 feet in height. And the last one is with respect to the Cape Cod berm along the side of the roadway. Your regulations require an 18-inch Cape Cod berm. We're looking to do a 12-inch Cape Cod berm. And we would add, that extra foot of pavement essentially to the traveled way so that you'd have the same overall pavement width side to side, but it would be a 12-inch Cape Cod berm instead of 18. I'm going to turn it back over to you at this point, but that's our quick overview of Marshfield Hills Estates. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. We'll go to Pat Brennan.
Thanks, Mike. Submitted a letter to you guys on September 17th with a number of comments. I'm only going to hit on a few of them right now. A lot of them are the same as the last project, but I'm going to hit on the ones that I think are probably the most important. The first being that the project's going to require a lot of fill to construct. Basically, the entire roadway is going to be constructed in fill, assuming due to high groundwater table. I've asked that they provide basically a mass balance analysis so we know how much fill needs to be brought into the site to construct everything. Another waiver they're going to need is a dead-end road. You restrict it to having no more than 8 dwelling units, and they're proposing 10 to be accessed by the roadway, so they're going to need a waiver for that. Your regulations require that the retaining walls be located on the line of the street layout. The proposed retaining walls at that wetland crossing are actually shown outside of the right-of-way. So if they're allowed, they'll need easements, or the right-of-way will need to be widened through that section in order to construct them as shown. We're going to need test holes at the location of their stormwater basin. I wasn't aware that all of the lots have been perked. I thought that they had only done testing on the front portion of the site. I wasn't aware that they were able to cross the wetland to get out there to do the other stuff. So hopefully they can get the test holes done where the infiltration basin is going as well. And the water main, I believe I've asked them to provide some information on whether or not they're going to have adequate fire flow. This is going to create a long dead end, and I'm not exactly sure where the water main is fed from. I believe it actually comes from like Old Main Street and comes through some private property. It doesn't come from Highland Street up to this point. It comes from a different direction, and I think it's only a 6-inch main, so providing adequate fire flow out here, I think is going to be an issue. Going from a 6-inch to an 8-inch, especially with a long dead end, getting that fire flow will likely be problematic. So that could be an issue as well. Those were the big items that I saw. There's several other comments, but I think it's something that Greg Morse and I can certainly work through. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks, Pat. We'll go to Greg Guimond.
Thanks, Mike. So as Pat mentioned and Greg, there are a number of waivers requested. The 50-foot buffer was not requested for the submittal. Once again, no public benefits have been offered. Currently, as Greg mentioned, the project is permitting with the Conservation Commission. It also needs to go to the Board of Appeals for an inland wetland special permit 1301 and a filling of land special permit 1103. this proposal, as Pat had mentioned, had not provided the fill amount that's required. In addition, Pat had mentioned that pretty much the whole road is on fill. Pretty much all the house lots are on fill as well. So this is going to take a couple of different boards working on this, which is why the staff recommends to continue this public hearing until December 2nd in order to give time enough to get these things resolved. And one other thing, I believe Paul Duras said from the water department, not only is it 6-inch main, Pat, that it's feeding off of through private properties, but it's PVC pipe. It's not ductile iron. So that's one thing that the DPW is very concerned with.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Any comments from the board right now?
No, sir.
Okay, I know we got a long way to go on this project, but any comments from the public? We stop sharing the screen for a second just so I can see. There we go. Anyone here from the public right now? Looking to speak? No? Okay, that's fine. So lots to work through, I guess, with between Pat and Greg Morrison.
Excuse me, I'm the applicant. I'd like to.
Oh, sure.
Hi, good evening.
Just,
I'm
yeah,
Rob
name and address
Celebrity.
if
I'm
you
the
could.
app. My name's Rob Celebrity. I'm the applicant. And I'm working with Greg. He's my engineer. Can you just repeat again the ZBA requirements, 1101? What was that again?
CBA Inland Wetlands Special Permit is 1301. And the filling of land special permit is 1103.
Okay, so the filling of land, what's the purpose of that? We haven't even given the analysis of the cut and fill. Is it a certain, once you go over a certain volume, we have to go to ZBA
Yes,
for that?
and you're going to be way over the volume.
What is the volume?
It's relatively small. It's like an acre.
So if you isn't it cubic yards or isn't it bumped by cubic yards?
If you call the office tomorrow, we'll give you the exact number.
Yeah, if you could give us the information on the ZBA requirements. Yeah, just a couple things. In regards, I was talking to Greg, we will not be doing a main, we'll be doing just wells on the property. We got some information back from DPW, so it's rather problematic to go down Main Street, etc. So we'll just do all individual wells and comply with NFPA 13 with all the single families will have your sprinkler systems. But this is, a different curveball here with the ZBA, so we'll take it under advisement and talk to my engineer and go from that way.
Rob, it's
Yeah.
10,000 square feet or 500 cubic yards.
So if
For
I
the
understand
filling of land.
correctly, any subdivision in Marshfield, if you have over, what would you say,
500 cubic yards or in excess of 10,000 square feet in area.
So basically, every subdivision that you have would trigger a ZBA review. Is that how it works in Marshfield?
Most of our subdivisions have been removing earth, not filling earth. At least in the recent past.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Thanks.
Anyone else in the public? I don't see anyone else here. All right, so anything from the board before we continue this? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion to continue this public hearing until 12/2/24 at 7:05 PM. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick,
Nick Papastratus, aye.
Fred, we lost Fred.
We did.
All right, Kevin
Kevin Campbell, I.
and Mike Viviano, aye. I'm sure Fred's having technical difficulty, as he always does. All right, let's see. I can't see the agenda. One second. Oh, I think that wraps it up. Greg, is there anything else?
Is it
From the
all right
planning
is it all right that we go ahead with the other 4 zoning changes?
Oh, yeah. Do we need a vote for that? Or wait, you're gonna do a hearing on them?
You're gonna do a hearing on them anyway. It's
Yep.
just, we wanted to check with you before we re-advert, put in a second advertisement and had a second public hearing.
Yeah, I have no problem. I don't think we saw any nays from anyone else on the board. Everyone else okay? Yep, I think we're good to move forward with that, please.
Okay, thank you.
All right, at this time, I'll make a motion to close tonight's public meeting. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye.
Nick,
Nick Papastratus, aye.
Fred is absent for a minute. Kevin
Kevin Carroll, I.
and Mike Viviano, aye. Okay, that concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Night.